Salam, peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Galaxy 19 satellite for Muslim Network TV. And you are also on Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV, as well as our website, muslimnetwork.tv. It was a while ago, close to 25 years ago, that among many Muslim leaders, I was invited to have a meeting with Cardinal Bernardine. And we have good conversation. I found that Catholic Cardinal to be a very nice person. And he told us frankly that he received a letter from Pope to meet Muslim community, and that's why he's meeting. Very obedient, I guess. Well, cardinals probably listen to their popes. Muslims have no popes. And Muslim in that meeting, everybody was talking everything else. And Cardinal Bernardine started talking about one particular point. He said, Catholic schools are closing. Well, I hear Muslims are opening schools. Why not we think of collaboration? That Muslim, we have buildings and infrastructures and systems that Muslims participate with us. And of course, math is math and science is science. And when it comes to religious studies, those could be Muslim do teachings of Islam, and we Catholic do our own teachings. That conversation, I don't know if ever were formally adopted by the Muslim community, but I came to know a whole lot of Muslim children, Muslim parents send their children to Catholic schools. Actually, there are a couple of universities, Catholic universities in Chicago, with a very high percentage of Muslim students, giving several tens of millions of dollars in fee contributions to the Catholic institutions. And some of those places, Catholics also care enough to have a place of worship for Muslims and a proper system of incorporating their ideas and thought. So that relationship was coming into being when there was hardly any Muslim school but one. Muslim schools in Chicago has been many. When I came here first time, 1977, there were one Muslim school called Sister Clara Muhammad School. That school, unfortunately, no longer with the Imam Davliddin Muhammad community, but there are many other schools. How many? We'll find out. How many Muslim schools in North America? How this phenomena began? To discuss all of that with us is one person who is in the middle of it all. He is Mr. Habib Qadri. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Habib Qadri.
Thank you, Imam Malik Mujahid.
All right. Habib Qadri is superintendent of the Muslim Community Center Academy, or MCC Academy, in Skokie and Morton Grove. He's an author and lecturer on Islam and social problems confronting Muslim youth. He also serves on the board of a prestigious Muslim publishing institutions, Iqra Foundation. Welcome. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
All right, good to know. So I sort of, seeing you all the time in education, I sort of visualize myself thinking, well, when he was about 5-year-old, he told his father he's going to grow up and become a principal of some schools. Was that the case?
Not quite, but through time, I think my process of being involved in the community, so I'm working with the youth groups at a young age. But my dad did kind of start the process, because when I complained about the weekend school, like a Sunday school religious kind of program on the weekends, when I graduated 8th grade, or as a 13-year-old, he said, well, why don't you do something about it? And I started teaching at 14 preschool, pre-K classes. And from there, I kept on teaching for about 15, 20 years until I was 21, 22. Even at college, I used to come on the Sunday to teach. And that started the whole process with that and youth groups and programming. And I felt like that was my calling.
Okay, well, boy, teens setting their course, that's amazing. I mean, I have people who are at the university and they have no idea what they're going to be doing. So, were there any other ideas you wanted to do with your life?
Oh, I mean, for sure. There are others. If it wasn't for business, it was another idea. But sports. I mean, I played sports for many years, and like any child, you want to have that dream to be that first Indian Muslim basketball player in the NBA. So high school, college. After that I realized, it helped me. It kind of connected me to, with the not the community, but the school body, and built a lot of strong confidence in me. So I think so overall, but I knew I wanted to do something to help people. So that kind of helped out. Both my parents have been kind of involved in the community, and my mom's been teaching weekend school for about 50 years. And my mom's prayer was that I become an Islamic scholar. That was her supplication. So I said, look, I can't, maybe, well, God knows, but I'm not an Islamic scholar. But I said, well, you know what? Hopefully I could train people to become Islamic scholars.
Okay. So is your mom happy with you?
I don't know. Hopefully. I pray.
I mean, inshallah. Oh, so God willing. So I remember you're superintendent of MCC Academy in Martin Grove and Skokie. I remember a long time ago being invited because there is a protest that Muslim cannot own that primary school. And there were several neighbors and interfaith people who came in solidarity. I still have Sound Vision recorded that event, and we have the beautiful memories of that. So there were resistance even for Muslims to own a building which was being paid for, which was empty. Has situation with the neighbors improved since then?
Quite a bit, and just for people to have a better context, 1989, Persian Gulf War is happening. The Muslim community in an auction wins this building. They find out Muslims buy it. They decided to go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to have a referendum to buy it back. Right. And so I remember being a 13, 14-year-old going in, passing out flyers about who we are and, to support us keeping the building. So that was in 1989. Then in 2002, so I come back, I'm in Michigan. I come back to leaving the public school sector. And in 2002, they denied us even expanding and building a mosque. Right. So now we have the building. We're there for some time. Then they have this process of, well, we don't have enough land to expand on, which if anyone's been there, there's enough land. There's enough parking, and there's enough, like a big soccer field. So, but one of the key factors that what was very important was to build that interaction. And I think that's something that we have done. Having a good relationship with the mayor, with the village board, but also the police department, fire department, and then our local school districts. And I think that has helped where now it's the population of Muslims in that area is very big in the public school sector, even in our own school. But also what's been very important is that we've had also some individuals now be part of the village board and in various different areas being commissioners. So I think that plays a big part. And when the more their interaction happens, the greater the learning happens, right? And then that's kind of been a big significant push that we've had really pushed our community to get more involved and not just only talk to the village when we need something, but also what can we do to help them to make our community better.
So are some of those people who opposed initially or campaign against that will buy back? Of course, the federal government got involved and there was a lawsuit. And so opposition was defeated. But are some of those people who are opposed to, have we been able to win them over so they understand it better, or they just lost it?
I think there are always going to be a few who might maybe moved, right? So that has happened. But then you have a lot of the community now are very happy, right? Even are the fear, like when we come here, the housing, the market will go low. I mean, it's one of the most expensive places to now move to, right? So you have, in the sense of the cost value, the support, our kids have done well in the school districts. So what happens is, I think more and more they've seen people, as they got to interact with us, they felt very comfortable. We participate in the 4th of July parade. We participate in many of the school activities and the community activities that the mayor sets up. We even last year sponsored the 4th of July parade, not just participating, but even in funding some of that. The Morton Grove Foundation is another one that yearly that they generate money for a lot of the programs, for community service programs in Morton Grove, to the Niles Food Pantry. So there are various other avenues. What we've done is to get involved. So those individuals that maybe had some concerns or resentment, and I felt that many of them just had the fear of the unknown, because at that time it was right after 9/11. And so when they got to start meeting with us and introducing us and having conversations and programs and inviting them to our food and fun fair, to our dinners, it changed the ball game. And I think it's really has shifted. And a lot of those who maybe were concerned are not concerned anymore. But there's things that we could always do to keep on improving and making things better.
There was a study, I forgot the name, but he was father of the school integration program. I think Mr. Coleman, if I remember him correctly. I heard his lecture at the University of Chicago. It seems over there at that time, probably I was the only student, because all looked like professors who were attending to his. He did a research that wherever there is a private school, the quality of private school rubs off to close by public schools, and the quality of public school goes up because of that. And he said that by saying that I am about to commit a heresy, then he presented his data. Do you think the Muslim community, among African American community, there is a general knowledge in the African American community? I mean, I live among African Americans, that whenever a Muslim have a mosque or businesses, the crimes goes down the neighborhood. I mean, Imam Siraj Wahaj, I mean, his whole neighborhood transformed completely. But do you think the Muslim community, buying that building, other people coming in, you say relationship is good, but have we contributed to property value going up, overall quality of life improving in that area?
Yeah, if you look into the Morton Grove area, the property has only gone up, right? And then you've seen that effect. You've seen businesses even open up in our area, which are Muslim-owned businesses. You also have individuals, like if you think even a public school, where many of our school kids go to, it's maybe the second public school, at least in 1994, 95, to start like a Muslim club. So they have Muslim prayers in both of the places after school. But also many of the students are one of your top students, right? The National Merit Scholars, you will have that many of those Illinois scholars, there's a high percentage of Muslim students. So you've seen that they've also done well on the academic aspect of it, for many of the debate after school clubs, and even athletes. You had one of our young ladies who was recognized for wearing a scarf, and then they did a whole article about her. So you've seen various individuals who have not just not just celebrating their faith, but also making sure they're part of the Morton Grove, Skokie, Niles Township community, and making sure that community is better, and not just our own masjid community, but making sure that it's playing a big impact in helping others out. And you'll see those kind of specific things are happening more and more throughout, as our kids are getting involved in the community projects.
This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Mr. Habib Qadri, who is the superintendent of MCC Academy System. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, as well as MuslimNetwork.tv. And I'm talking with Mr. Habib Qadri, who was a principal, now superintendent of a Muslim school system in Chicagoland area. Last year, you were honored by the White House, invited to be honored in White House as one of the 5 private school principal for your educational leadership. Well, how it came about and how you felt about being honored in White House?
Oh, for any, it's always exciting to be recognized for the work you do, and I think for me, especially being a Muslim American, I think it was very important for to show kids that in any field you do your best, God will take care of the rest. And sometimes you might not get recognized here, but even a small school like this can be recognized for the work you're doing here at a national level, right? And I think it was great because it was also for the community and for the teachers for the work they did to show, because they were looking at various things, right? So one was academic success. Have you seen growth? And being there for 16 years, I kept all the data and saying, okay, this is what has happened. When they informed me that someone nominated me, but here's the criteria, things that we need to, when you are going to be in a pool of other individuals to see where you stand, they looked at the academic success. They looked at, supporting school culture and climate. And so what the programs that we did for that. After school programs, right? We started from maybe 1 to 2 to 40 different after school clubs. Looking at community relations and some of the programs that we have done throughout the community and even internationally. We've had more than 8-9 different countries, school ministers, our educators come and visit our school. And so the impact of some of the things that we have done, it was great to see that all that work that all the staff did, and maybe it helped facilitate it, but everyone doing that work kind of came together. And then so I call that award for the community. And I was quite exciting, and getting to see fellow educators throughout the United States was very humbling and exciting. And it was great to see some of that work be recognized. It's always everyone, it's in our faith, you try to be humble about it, but it's always good to hear or good to see that things are getting recognized. And I feel like it was a great excitement for me and my family, but also for the community.
Well, thank you so much for your work, because Muslim community get recognized through the work Muslim individuals do. And when they do a bad job, 9/11, that takes all of us down.
Right.
But you have to work hard to take the community forward. Now, answer that question which Cardinal Bernardine raised. While the Catholic have infrastructures, more building, their schools are closing down, while Muslims are opening new schools. So why Muslims are opening new schools instead of collaborating and working with the system which is already out there?
I think there are always going to be schools, and everyone has to make that personal decision. But I think when you look at many other faiths, Jewish schools, or even see the Catholic schools and the Protestants, I chair the Illinois Coalition of Non-Public Schools. So there's 17 associations that we represent, 2,000 schools. So all of them, so you have the Montessori or independent schools, then you have private schools, Lutheran schools, and evangelical schools. So everyone there has sometimes that feeling that we want to make sure that they get their education, but also building that foundation of identity of who they are. And sometimes being somewhere in a school for 8 hours, if there could be an opportunity for a parent to send their child where they get the academic standards, but at the same time getting some experience to get to know them, who they are and their faith and their experience, and kind of build that and understand how they can become a better Muslim American. That is sometimes, for the parents, that helps that process. And especially, I think, when you are now in a country, 2nd, 3rd, 4th generations, in a few years, it's human nature that sometimes people lose their identity after 3, 4 generations. And I think making sure their core of their spirituality or their faith, to instill that, sometimes the school builds that. So some parents might go from preschool to 3rd grade. Some might go up to 5th grade. Some might go up to 8th grade. Some might go through to high school. Some might experience for 1 or 2 years. But I think the more we parents have seen as they are growing up here. And I also see my generation where sometimes the weekend school they learned, but they maybe didn't have all that knowledge, and they feel like here's an opportunity, institution that could help build that strong base of faith in them, and the character, but also develop their minds to be successful people in this world, and also successful people in the hereafter.
Okay, so that's a lot of success you're demanding. Of course, we pray for that every day, all the time. How many Muslim schools are there in the United States?
About 285, and I think only becoming bigger. But at least as from Islamic School League of America, when they did their last research, and that was about 6-7 years ago, it was at 275. But I'm thinking now that 285 to 295, because even in the Chicagoland area, there's about 15 to 16, and growing. Which say registered by the state schools. So I think it is something that's been on the rise. But at the same time, what's happening is it's making sure that we also provide the proper quality, and we have to make sure that we always have this yearning to get better. Because like anything else, if you don't take care of it, then it could slowly go away, right? And so I think that's something that we're going to have to keep on developing and kind of working and making sure when we're doing decisions, we're doing things that are proper.
How many students at the MCC Academy?
Right now, we're 735 students, on the full time, and then the week after school programs we have about 250 extra students.
And how many teachers?
Altogether, staff is about 100. So teachers about 70.
Yeah.
Wow.
So is this the proper ratio in America to service students properly?
Our school is a little bit bigger than majority of other schools, right? So that's something just to kind of keep in mind. So I think we're in a unique situation here. But I think what we need people to understand is that the ratio, many schools, you might have 100 kids, 200 kids, 1 to 25 ratio, 1 to 20, all depends on, their approach. But due to sometimes the economic challenges, you would have to kind of, you can't have that ideal 1 to 10 because we're trying to also keep the cost. Like at our school, it's very important for us to have it diverse. We have 46 different countries at our school. We have specific seats for refugee students, for specific students from the inner city. We are trying to make sure that we accommodate in building scholarships and stuff, and not to make the tuition at such a price that's only for a specific group of people. So I think a lot of schools are going through that challenges and trying to develop that cost-effective program. So you'll see the numbers and the staff change due to the circumstances and financial situations.
Does bullying goes on in Muslim schools as well?
Oh, sure. I mean, like anything, that is, can it happen? Yes. Or it can, and is that something that could be a challenge? No doubt about it. Because when you have so many different students, there are always going to be some students there. But what are you doing and what are we building, right? So it can't just be like, oh, when something happens, how to deal with it. How are you building the school format to lessen those things to happen, right? It could be social dynamics to even bullying, are just making sure they're culturally more aware of their behavior and word usage. So that is something that when people say, well, you're sending them to like a religious institution, that nothing wrong happens. Look, kids are kids, life is life. I always remind people, even in parents, like, oh my God, I sent them to a religious school. Someone said that one kid was swearing. Okay, I'm like, well, you could go to a so-called Muslim country and you'll see some things which are not very Muslim-like. So I always remind people there are going to be challenges, and that's the part of an educator or the school, working with the parents, working with all the stakeholders to try to have the best environment possible for them to be successful individuals.
A couple of incidents I'm aware of involving 3 schools where African American and African students were either refused admission or felt uncomfortable and withdrew. So do you have African students, and how the issues of race, which are so common in our society, are handled in your system?
We do have students who are Black, are African American, and then we also have quite a bit from Africa. So that is something that, no doubt about it, can there's a situation happen, and that's why it's so important from the leadership training, making sure they themselves are aware of, making sure cultural awareness and sensitivity. Sometimes we just think Muslims like, oh, we're all Muslims, and we all get along. No, we all have our biases, prejudices sometimes, and our stereotypes. And so it's so important to make sure that we get that, that out of our system, and being aware of our own as leaders, but then our teachers, and then also the students, right? It's all three phases. Sometimes we're like the students. I'm like, no, we got to make sure even our teachers, how they're speaking to individuals from different ethnic groups, diverse groups, plays a big part. So I think in some situation that happens, what are the steps that we have to make sure to rectify a situation are things that our schools have to keep in mind. So that's why I think it's first thing we have to realize that things can happen. And we have to see how we can improve to make them better. And I think that's the first thing.
Are you aware of any incidents in your school when some people, administration, teachers, or other students harass Black students?
No, alhamdulillah, at least that we know of, we have not had like harassment of students. But has there been a situation where like students have talked to each other, or when students feel maybe, hey, you know what, we once had a whole conversation before we didn't take Martin Luther King Day off. So I remember talking to some of our parents and saying, what do you think? Would it be better to have school and do a program, or should we not have it? So that was kind of brought up. Right now, could there be a situation where once I think a second grader talk about one kid's like, hey, you're white or you're Black, right? So I think those kind of conversations could happen. Our students, when they're singing a rap song and they use the N-word, right? Even if I'm like, hey, you can't speak that, or if we're even having those. So those are conversations that could be discussed as we have, like, a lot of times as principals and talking about with individuals. So those are conversations I could see that might happen. But anything that came to a point where like, hey, we had to bring parents in and so on and so forth. No, but can I say, hey, it might not have happened, I did not know about it? There might be, but what we try to do is, one of the things is why we build school climate culture is to check in with many of our minority students, even in Islamic school, to see, hey, what's your thoughts? Like even before 8th grade graduation, I have lunch with every student. And then even with the lower grades with the different classes by boys, sometimes, I just talk to them and see what their thoughts are from the girls' perspective on certain things. So what it helps is gives me a better idea of that. And then we highlight every child at our school. So every child in our school, it will be one time in front of the whole school and be introduced who they are, favorite color, favorite food, what something to get to know them about them. So this is something that kind of helps everyone to be at least recognized and get to know who they are. So I think there are steps, but at least that I know of, nothing major. But can there be room for improvement? No doubt about it.
There was a news item in the media that a Muslim girl hanged herself to death in the parking lot of your school. Mm-hmm. What was it, and what message did the Muslim school and the Muslim leadership drew from that?
Two things. First and foremost, I just wanted to clarify, because when you say this for our school, it was not one of our students. So to get that clear, because I was once sent by someone stating that. So I want to get that very clear. The second thing is that child had also some special needs and other difficulties beforehand. So when that situation did happen, the school district had informed us about it. So we had met with the parents. The family wasn't always connected to our masjid. But we still kind of kept it open with the mom, and the father had a specific other mosque that they would attend. So, but at the same time, we use that as also a learning tool. So I think it was very important that having, we wrote I wrote a whole piece on, the idea of mental illness. And we have also two school counselors at our school, social workers that we work with, Khilal Center. So I think those are kind of steps, and it was aware, and we realize that it is something that's happening more and more with our students, families, that could happen, but even in our community, right? And so even in that year, there were about 5 suicides in the whole United States that we knew from the Muslim community. So I think that kind of by itself kind of brings up that conversation and saying, but a lot of times also it's for parents to be aware that when some child is going through something, to get support, to get resources. When the social worker says, hey, so your child's going through it, no, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And that's that conversation that needs to happen. And Allah protect and Allah have mercy on her soul, because I think what it is also made parents aware and saying, we can't just let it go like, okay, don't worry, it's lack of iman, or hey, you know what, it's just, they're just being sensitive. And I think those are that was more of the key part. I think that we kind of learned from is making aware, bringing out resources, being, you see now more and more workshops and parents open to go visit. Even if you see Khalil Center, they're so busy that sometimes there's a waiting list to get in. So you realize it's really opened up now to be not taboo to go speak to a social worker, a therapist, or a counselor, right? And I think that's something I realized it's really in the sense of, as these things were happening, the community is more and more aware to let's kind of confront these situations.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking Mr. Habib Qadri. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and MuslimNetwork.tv. This is Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Habib Qadri, who is superintendent of MCC Academy in the Chicagoland. You spend quite a bit of time writing books, traveling, guiding different other schools across the country. Your whole life seems to be involved around Muslim education and things of this nature. How do you keep up your own learning process? How are you also learning, improving, and growing, because your responsibilities, connection, and impact seems to be growing?
Yes, I think for anyone, when you're writing about youth, so it's very important to kind of have your own personal person that you connect with. So, a teacher just to follow up on. So maybe from the religious aspect to kind of keeping up with that, but from the educational. So I myself, have an opportunity now for the last, I think it's been a decade, where I'm almost every summer at a university, at Harvard University, where, I'm on the advisory board. So I have the opportunity to keep on learning what's going out there, meeting with the professors and the newest research. We go every year and visit various school districts where a lot of our doctoral students are doing stuff. So it gives me an opportunity to see what the newest things are coming out, making sure we're reading the journals and updated research that's coming, what's very important. And then I think that kind of helps. And then, just kind of visiting. I mean, when I have the opportunity to go visit from at least maybe 100 schools here and overseas, but I'm learning also. When you're going there, you're picking up stuff. It's not just me giving them information, and I always tell people the greatest learning is when you go experience and see stuff, because you're trying to, as you're analyzing, you're also like, well, that's a great thing to do. That's a great thing to pick up. So, and that played a big part, right? And I think that part on the education aspect, from the social aspect of it, we're dealing with youth. You're also looking at what's going on in the world. So it's very important to keep in contact with the kids. And that's why it's very important for me to meet up with the kids at our school, my own personal kids. I still coach my own personal kids' basketball teams. All my kids play, my daughters, my sons play sports. So it gives me that interaction and to find out, because when I wrote the book War Within the Hearts, I had a lot of these questions and I wanted to ask someone, and I realized many of our scholars, may God bless them, but sometimes they knew the content, but not the context. So it's so important to know what's going on. So I realized when I grew up, I'm like, you know what, all these questions I had, maybe they're going to just write them, right? I'm going to have the scholars look over it and then send that out. So it's so important for me now, even if I'm going to give information, I have to keep in mind, just knowing the content's not enough, understanding the context of what the kids are going through, to what the culture, what kind of music they listen to, all these play a big part. So in some ways keeps me young, but I think that has helped in understanding. So learning from like a religious standpoint aspect of it, but then also learning the secular education, just school education, but then also understanding the culture of the group of people I'm dealing with, from the teachers and saying what's going on with teachers' lives right now to what's going on with students' lives and parents and what are the challenges are. So what I maybe wrote 7 years ago, we're rewriting one of the books right now, and we're doing some like small videos on certain topics. I have it like even tonight, like at 5, we're reteaching that book because we're kind of updating the new stuff. So by these new kids, like 25 kids on Skype, we're getting new information like, oh, hey, you should think about this. I'm like, okay, this is great. As we're rewriting this new book, we decided to teach a class so we can learn from the kids also as we're teaching this course about, hey, these are the new words usage. This is how technology's changed. This is how clothing's changed, music's changed. What are the new influencers? What are the new challenges that kids have has played a big part.
Share with us how, the content people say is everything. And of course, you have a Muslim school, the environment, Islamic messages all around. But when it comes to textbook, what children are reading, is there if there are 275 or 285 Muslim schools across the country, is there some satisfactory development in terms of writing books which are original, which are good, which are contributing, or bricks and mortar is going up and software is behind it?
Yeah, I mean, like, bricks and mortars, it's not what it is 10, 20 years ago, in the sense. So but there are books, publishers who have written some books, but I always tell every school, like, you might have one publisher for one few grades and another publisher for another, or sometimes bringing in your own, right? And I think that's something that has to keep in mind. Look, even several years ago, we tried to bring standards. Like we looked at 4 or 5 of the major publishers, like I Love Islam series, Iqra series, Tashkir from South Africa back in the days. Looked at what are some basic things and what were some standards. But I realized every school has their own demographics. All of them have their own boards, and then they have their different teachers, right? Like for us, it's very important. All our Islamic studies teachers also have teaching certificates. So that way they don't just have the religious studies, like all our middle school have our scholars, but at the same time, we've kind of developed them to get their certifications in teaching. So they have some of the methods courses. So I think that becomes a big thing, and then it's evolving, especially by middle school, high school. There are going to be those foundational things that everyone needs to know, your basic understanding, aqidah, but then also the akhlaq aspect, the social issues aspect, understanding Islamic history, understanding the great Islamic history in America, like especially the Black leaders of our community who have made things easier, right? So it's so important for us to like have these kids understand who are the movers and shakers to make our lives better, even in America context, and not always focusing on what happened 1,400 years ago. We have to make sure the seer of the prophet, those developments, but how other places in different years and different time centuries, people who played major impacts. So I think, kind of rethinking things, and especially the social issue aspect, because you want to give them the necessary tools so when they're leaving your doors, and even in your doors, because there's challenges there too. Like, those are going to be there. So like dealing with mental health issues, dealing with like, people are going to influence you.
The question which I'm raising is that the points which you're bringing up, new books and textbooks are written from that perspective.
I think in the first initial, a lot of people are rewriting stuff, right? I think that's something that you see when they first originally wrote in 15, 20 years ago. Then they looked over at 10. And now they're making some changes, right, as they go through. And I think that's what many schools are looking at. Now, publishers are going to have to rethink that, or looking at different people to rewrite some of those. But I think that is the process. But we can't wait for publishers, because publishers might not, the person who's writing it might not understand the context of all of it. So sometimes I have to work with educators to do that, or the educators at the schools are going to take that and say, okay, now how do we disseminate it in a way for it to connect with the kids? And that's why I believe it's more about not publishers as it is teachers to train them the proper way.
So, no, I understand the environment, the teachers, but also the the textbook. Textbook is a textbook. Textbook anchors teacher, textbook and curriculum anchors students, and it determines a whole lot of things on what people will be tested upon.
Sure.
America is facing certain challenges, and a lot of societies do. One of the challenges about our diversity. Diversity is going to be accepted as American as apple pie, or diversity will always remain a second thought when some demonstration and protest takes place in a louder manner. So this remains an issue. Similarly, it's a pluralistic society. There are all sort of people, religion, culture, ethnic groups, although there are dominant groups as well. But so from in that perspective, there was a news item that American Jewish Committee found that Iqra books somehow are anti-Semitic, and so I don't know and I was told by his founder that American Jewish Committee people is sitting in Iqra. When he invited, I declined to attend, involved in revising that. So is there a system in which a positive aspect of pluralistic connection with neighbors, relation with other faith communities are taught in a way that whatever the teachings of the Quran and prophets are there are interpreted in this way, which contributes the growth of a society which is good for all people?
Yeah, but even that was at 2003, which was right after 9/11, where we went to WGN, talked to them, and they took it completely out of context, where the Prophet ﷺ, because if you're going to throw that out and throw a publisher's name, then I think it needs to be very clear that was in 2003. That was brought up, and that was regarding the idea that the Prophet said when they broke the treaty that you can't trust Jews, and they just used that kind of line, and it was completely taken out of context. So the idea of that, and they have quite a bit of different individuals and Jewish groups that they work with. So I have not seen so many groups that have that. They were all looking. If people had, they would, right now having Islamic schools, they've realized that individuals who join Islamic schools is better than majority of those terrorists are extreme individuals who have done hate crimes or terrorist activities. Majority of them are not connected to a masajid or a school. So I realize the majority of what it's being taught, I don't think that's, in the sense that fear. But is there ways to look at it? And that's why the teacher, in the way that they're going to convey that information, I think it's there. People are really looking. That was at 2002. They've even looked at it and rewrote the Mercy to Mankind book. And they took it from the Mercy to Mankind book, what all of us grew up with. So that was the specific book that they had used at that time. But I think there's no doubt about it. Everyone could kind of look at it and they rewrite in the way it is done, especially like 20, 30 years ago to rewriting. But I think a lot of times there's a historical context and making sure the clarification of how that's understood. So I think that's no doubt about doubt about it. But also even now adding on, not every book's going to have like, hey, making sure that, like how the Black Lives Matter movement, making sure that, and especially in like social studies, but making sure Islamic schools focus a little bit more on the history of the Black community and making sure that's going to be touched upon. So you'll see from a religious aspect of it, for just general aspect, that is something that no doubt about it that they are going to kind of convey. But I haven't heard that much about, oh, wow, I live Islam. There's all these anti-Semitic. That's news to me.
Okay, so you're dealing with youth, and you have been teaching since you were a teenager. It has been a lifetime dedicated to this. Tell me this: a general statement. Are Muslim youth better off today, Islamically speaking, because that probably was the reason Muslim schools were established, as compared to when you were a teenager and going to school yourself?
I think children are more exposed to faith and resources than when I grew up. If I look at majority of my friends who went to weekend school, how many of them pray 5 times a day? There's a concern sometimes, or how much they know about their faith. So I think it's a balance. I think there are a lot more exposure. I look at my own kids and their friends, what they know, and at a young age being exposed to the faith and practicing their faith. The key factor is that we have, if parents is the key. See, it's not just kind of information, even in Islamic school. If their parents don't make this a stress that this is important, because there are some parents who might say, just send them there just so they don't get inculcated with the society, but they themselves don't practice, and then just hypocrisy happens. So I think it's a balance where I would see there, if a parent who's also involved in giving that, now you're just pushing that, you're just helping support what you're trying to get across to your child. So I think the resources, opportunities, and even like, when people sometimes, I know there has been Islamophobia, but when we grew up in the 90s, 80s and 90s, going to school, hey, I'm not talking about really being rough in the comments and the comments people used to make when I used to play sports, mom drive, walking, comments that were done. There was a lot more, I feel, than even in the 90s where more people are more sensitive, even though I think now things are being taped more. But I've realized there's still hatred now, but that it was there before. But I think the generation after, because of 9/11, they all always grew up under attack. So I think that has kind of played a psyche on a lot of our students too. But that's why I think they also need to know their faith more, because now it's being pushed more about the faith. A lot of times we were like the unknown, so they would just make comments. But now our faith is the number one topic.
Are you crediting Islamophobia to create better Muslims?
I think Islamophobia has woken up people. Okay. Sometimes you get very comfortable. I think even my generation, people sometimes were like, "Oh, we're all the same. Oh, nothing, there's nothing," And I think it helped kind of light a little match in their minds or in their heads or in their life to say, wait a minute, you know what? We need to kind of understand ourselves. If we want to respond, we need to know our own faith, and we need our kids to understand how to balance themselves, to be proud of who they are in a society where sometimes you are the headline for the day.
I remember watching after 9/11 some ABC News.
Uh-huh.
And ABC News camera person, a reporter, showed up at somebody's home suspecting of something. And that guy said, "Oh, no, I have nothing to do with this." And he stick out his hand with a beer, saying that, "Look, I even drink beer." And another incident, somebody was sitting on the TV on PBS, and he had a Muslim with a tie with the American flag, and he lifted up his tie. "Look, even my tie is American flag." Mm-hmm. That was a one way some people were handling. And during that time came out a survey which was published by ISPU, which says, I think, more than 40% of Muslims, college-going Muslims, say that they drink. Mm-hmm. And immediately after that came another survey of Gallup, in which also in survey people, 18 to 28-year-old said close to, I think, 16% that they do binge drinking. I didn't even know what word binge means, so I figured it out what binge drinking means. Do you feel that alcohol and drugs are something which is more common among young Muslims, or it is as often found as among other young people?
No, I think now you have more kids, Muslim kids, using and then kind of following the United States norm, right? And that's what that's something that's kind of changed, because now they're experiencing. Now there's two parts to it. When you're now more and more around the community, you get assimilated to the community, and when you get assimilated to the community, it's nothing wrong with it, but you have to pick and choose. So now, especially weed being legalized, you see more and more kids, and then kids now can search things. Like, I could find a fatwa that says, "Hey, weed is okay." So people now are more, and the idea of the social media doing stuff, the shame, modesty is really less, right? So even though there have been opportunities for more learning for kids to happen, and that's why that navigating of, okay, not just knowing your information, but understanding and implementing it's so important at the house level and there. So MSAs and all that, there's going to be challenges. There was challenges before, but back then there was no videos, no cameras, and there was no research as it is there now. But also the population of Muslims have increased from when I grew up, right? So when you have that and it's more of a norm, and you're more, a part of the community, it's challenges, right? So even me playing high school basketball, maybe even one or two, maybe in the whole United States, or even at a college level. Now there's a lot more. So and people have different ethnic groups. So I think what it does is, for sure, drinking that, party, because the diversity is more open. People are more inclusive of letting people come in into their social groups. So I agree. Hookah lounges are huge. Most of those owners are Muslim. so you have all these things, and I'll call these all gateway drugs. Where you start smoking stuff, you're going to try something later after that. So those challenges, no doubt about it, it could only get more and more, right? And that's why I think the idea of kind of making sure that foundational stuff and the community, and you see the programming of communities are now different too, and more social programming than just always like a religious talk and stuff. It's going to be important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Qadri, for sparing good amount of your time with Muslim Network TV, and I hope you will continue to refer great people like yourself, and your neighbors, so we could interview them, and we keep building community through communication as well. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for watching. You have been watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV, and a whole lot of social media. Our website is muslimnetwork.tv. And thank you, Sumaya Haider and Aliza Majid, for producing today's show. And thank you for the presence of our producer, Abdul Wahid. Peace. Salam. Be careful, happy, and productive.